Hello, guys, and welcome to another edition of Babblin. We're at number 8 now. I've definitely not just been told that. I know that from the bottom of my heart.
No, he knew that from the top of his
You
noggin.
totally,
because I'm so
totally
committed
do
to this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
All that
we're
1%.
Yeah, all right, brilliant. As always, you know that you're a pretty special lad when even Ethan, being the spacker that he is being able to put more work into something than you are. So, you know, I mean, that makes
What is it's pretty concerning, yeah. I mean,
it is.
Lovely lad,
It is. I
isn't he?
should probably,
Lovely
I should
lad.
probably get like an
Lovely
evaluation or
lads.
an MRI or something. But anyway,
team
today,
spirit,
guys,
team spirit.
Oh yeah, no. There's a quick note. We were supposed to do conspiracy theories. I can't be asked. We're doing something else. Anyway,
Fantastic. Thank you for the viewership.
yeah.
If you were looking forward to conspiracy theories, well,
Fuck you.
get
Oh,
fucked.
yeah, fuck it. Yeah, no.
We
there's something
will
else.
arrange it for another time.
No,
Um,
we won't.
Okay. But
we will. We'll do
I'll
it.
make sure we
This will be
will. I'll
better.
make sure we will.
It's a
Go
fantastic.
on, Ben. Go on.
today, guys, I was going to talk about something that's really, really important. And it involves mental health, insecurities, technology, and the way that the world is going right now, and where we think that it'll end up going. Specifically, I'm going to start talking about social media. Like, what I wanted to really gauge from you guys is how you think social media has affected our younger generations, including our own. But not only that, I want you to look into and think about how it affects older people, because I was talking to one of my colleagues at work the other day about all of this, and what they said, the insight that he gave me, I thought it was really interesting. And everything that he said makes perfect sense. I think we're exposed to too much, and people being of younger generations are exposed to too much, and they know too much for their age, know too much, and have everything on a plate to them when they haven't even got enough life experience. Can be quite dangerous. I think, people now are so entitled as well, like with everything you've got for the power of a smartphone, which everyone needs to have in today's society to be able to function and get on with anything. If you don't have a smartphone, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, it's an absolute assumption now in the modern world that everyone
Essential,
does
isn't it,
have.
really?
Yeah, that we do. Like Elon Musk said that we're already technically cyborgs, which I found like just really sort of jarring to hear. But he's got a point, because everyone's so accustomed to having these phones on them. And I think what I mean is, when I say this whole entitlement thing, is everyone's always told that they're special. Like, they've got this idea of potential inside them, and are always led to believe that there's something different. And you
Right.
always look at social media, you always compare yourselves to the people around you and what they're doing, what they've got going on. And it's like a portfolio, it's an online portfolio where you can look at anyone across the world and see how great they're doing. You're rarely going to come across someone who's doing something awful. People are always talking about their success. It's always glamorous. It's always people doing good things or having good things happen to them. And this can be extremely dangerous, especially for young people. You become accustomed to seeing this, seeing how people are having it so good, allegedly. And you compare that to your own life in the real world, where things aren't going so well. It can make you feel insecure. It can make you feel really, really bad, And I think it's quite dangerous, because, like I said, comparing this to older generations and what they had, it was all real. There was no sort of calling people up, comparing online, doing all that. You wanted to meet someone, you talk to them the day before. Oh, I'll meet you tomorrow by the clock tower at 1:00. And if you don't see them, you can't just call them up and have that real quick and easy communication. You just got to deal with it, and you got to go about it like that. And I think growing up like that, having those sorts of constraints, I suppose, if you like, would genuinely make you a better person, obviously. And I just kind of wanted to gauge your thoughts on it, and just to sort of sum it up, where you think social media will end up going. Do you think it will all come to a collapse at one point? Do you think people will get too anxious, too built up, too pent up about all these things, and with the mental health issues and the connotations that are behind it? Where do you guys really see social media going? What end does this have? Is it just going to keep building? Are people just going to get more insecure? Will there be a huge revelation about it, and people will start to get clarity on it and educate themselves? I mean, I doubt that one personally. I don't think people will. But, what do you guys think?
Well, as everybody that is being born now, and probably the past few years, it's their culture and life now, this technology, so they don't know any different. Whereas probably us, we sort of grew up into the world where these things were slowly adapting, becoming more and more frequent. I read up the other day about Elon Musk releasing this fucking chip that can go in your head to play music. I don't know.
I saw that, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not surprised. In the next 20 years, people will be having these chips in them, and you'll be able to see certain things. I don't know if it is possible, but if you look back the past 100 years, how far have we come? I mean, I watched his Elon Musk things the other week. Like, he was able to, fly up, go to the space station. It's bizarre thinking that was ever possible. So I think technology is going to be ever advancing.
Well, the point of that as well is like it's also what you can do with money, and this is in terms of Elon Musk, because this is the same guy who was working on like space aerodynamics and stuff, and he decided to send one of the most powerful cars, which was a Tesla, which he had made, and he decided to just put it into space just because he could. And that is, kind of the evolution that we've taken with technology, in the sense of that we as human beings we will integrate technologies together just for the sake of boredom. Doesn't even need to be because it's progressive, because we'll do new things. It's literally just for the sake of, just because we can. The fact that a multi-billionaire, someone like that, someone as clever as that, has just decided, I'm gonna put a car in space. Like, any real reason? It's like, no, just I've got the facility to do it, so why don't I just do it? And I think that's also part of our downfall as well, because where we could be making progress, we're also just doing stuff out of sheer boredom, just out of personal entertainment, which is like, it's all well and good, but when it comes to progression, like, how far are we actually going to suppress ourselves before we start to realize that actually a lot of the stuff that we're doing isn't actually so much as helpful?
I think you've got to be careful with saying that, though, to be honest, because not only is technology progressing, it's absolutely accelerating. You look back to 5 years ago, or when the first iPhone came out, and you think about how mind-blowing it was that something was even a touch screen or things like that. And now look at us, we've got VR, we're going into AI technology. There's talks about being able to cure dementia or blindness or loss of hearing through an implant in your brain. There's things that are going on and things that are progressing, a lot that we don't know about. It's really exciting, but at the same time absolutely horrifying. And when people are messing about, as you said, like Elon Musk messing about with his sort of technology, I don't think that that's necessarily. But I think Elon Musk is an example of a good guy with power, like a good guy, a smart person who's got a lot of money and is putting it towards something that he really does want to, just pure-hearted. He wants to make a difference in the world, and he wants it to be good, and he has the power to do that. But on the way, he's certainly messing around. I think the changes basically that technology are having on our society is moving far too quickly for the human race to handle. I think a lot is coming at us very quickly, and for us to sort of cope with it and deal with it is becoming beyond us, I think.
You make a good point of like having to learn how technology is rapidly advancing. About the point of VR technology, obviously it's now incorporated into video gaming, which is obviously a great prospect. You can play horror games in first person, you can play shooters or whatever. Technology right now, because we're doing so much with it, it's still kind of like we're still really not sure what we're doing with it. When you buy a VR headset, you have millions of cables that you've got to plug in. You've got to do all these plugins. You've got to do all the software stuff. You've got to have, pretty much an entire like house room free just to pretty much just do the one thing. And it's like, as much as it's progressive, which is really cool, we're almost getting ahead of ourselves to the point where, we're mass selling this, but at the same time, it's like, well, hang on, I've got to put like bloody.
It's not ready, is it?
In. Like we are such clever creatures, but at the same time, I think there is the occasion where actually we might be too smart for our own good.
We can be really clever, but really stupid. We're the type of people that can make the most incredible devices and technology that can really advance the world into such wonders. Like, you look at these films that you've seen, like Back to the Future, Terminator, all these things, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, that would be bad if that happens. But the more we grow and the more technology advances, it is kind of like, shit, that could happen.
You know what's taking me back to just mentioning about the VR? I mean, probably a few years back, you thought, this whole sort of being within a game, it's never going to happen. Now we've got VR, and you've seen films such as like Ready Player One. It's possible, isn't it?
We're not far off, yeah.
I mean,
look how much the span of time that is. It's not very long at all. Like, we are
Mm.
like progressing so rapidly to the point where it's like we need to be careful we're not too ahead of ourselves.
When did the 360 come out? And look, from there to now, how much?
2006,
Something like that, yeah.
2005, 2006.
How much we progressed in gaming?
It is really crazy to think. One other thing that I was going to mention to you guys was about technological progression in terms of war and how that could be used. Because obviously with AI, there's talks about building like robotic, manufacturing and all of that sort of thing in, you know, constructs and an arsenal of war, which is a really terrifying thing. Because you can genuinely say, like Elon Musk goes on about this, and he spoke about this quite a lot about how dangerous it is, getting too advanced with AI and biting off a bit more than we can chew with it. And it's all well and good having those sorts of caps, but at the end of the day, there is conflict, and there always will be between certain countries around the world, and that's never going to change.
Never going to be resolved.
As much as you can say, you're never going to know what that other side's thinking, and there will always be that idea of being a step ahead, and there will always be that idea and craving for power. So it does make you wonder, behind closed doors, what are other countries doing, and what are they thinking about each other? Like, what sort of technological advances are they making in terms of weaponry, and what are their sort of what's their ambition towards it? Like, what are they thinking? Are they going to try and make these sorts of Terminator-like machines?
Well, another
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's very sort of worrying to think what that other person's thinking.
Well,
and it does make you think it's inevitable that it could end up, happening.
What's that, Neve?
Another thing with war, like, I mean, you've got countries that have so much money and a lot that's put into their sort of armies and stuff, such as America. And then you've got all these other countries that they probably go to war with. They're just going to obliterate them. They've got all this technology. I mean, they don't even have to be there. They could just send like a drone
up in the sky,
completely destroy a whole town or whatever.
But this is the point that Ben makes as well. How we're not always so sure. We're not always so certain of like what other nations are making. I mean, like we've got all this stuff. We've got like the Trident project and stuff, and like those submarine nukes and stuff which surround our country, which is all well and good. But it's like, we still have no idea. Like, I think the US, I think it was last year or the year before, they had spent just over $200 trillion on their military hardware and stuff.
Yeah.
I think you guys might have seen it as well. There's like videos of you've seen like, it's like robot dogs.
It's the Black Mirror episode.
No.
All of it sounds like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, it does. But no, it's like these robotic four-legged beings that they've made.
Yeah.
They're supposed to, they sort of just bounce around. You get those funny videos where they flip on their sides.
Where they like flip it around and they're mecking it up.
If you search it, you'll know. But it's like it's these things where basically they're designed for carrying heavy weight for soldiers when they go, traveling across, wilderness or whatever. But the machinery is so clever. They built a version of it where it was able to do somersaults. It could do backflips and front flips, and it could crawl and stuff like that. And it's like, it's really crazy how progressive it is. But at the same time, like, is it worth putting a cap on it? Like, how much restraint should we give ourselves before
just
think you get like a Terminator situation or something?
That's fucking clever, though, isn't it? You can make a bloody robot.
I think it's really scary. I won't lie, because like everyone says, "Oh, we shouldn't let Terminator happen." Yet you see these advancements, and it's low-key like, what if Terminator happens? What if one day a robot just figures out, "Oh, you know what? I don't really want to obey you anymore," and then he's able to overcome it.
Have you seen the Sophie bot? So it's
AI,
it's like an AI bot sort of system. But yeah, it's so sophisticated. Like, you can have a proper conversation with it and stuff. And there's always people on social media that see the stuff and they go, "Oh, we're all gonna die." And like, it's gonna get clever. But it is scarily clever. But again, the fact that it goes onto social media, like, across your Facebook and stuff, and everyone sees it, and it's just like, and a lot of people start going, "Oh, well, I saw this on Facebook, I saw this on Twitter." And social media is a really strong way to, of course, get those messages across.
So I think we've gone really deep, really, really quick with all of this, and like, there's so much really that you can unravel, and there's so many layers and things that you can go into. But one thing that I do want to go back to and talk about, because I feel like we brushed over this really quickly, is just social media in general. So I want you guys to think about your grandparents and all those sorts of things, the older generations, and think about the younger generations now. What sort of impact do you think social media has had, and how do you think it's made a difference between them?
Well,
Start with you, Nathan.
I mean, social media is, as you see, it's accessible with younger people because they have more of a mental capacity to absorb it and learn from it. You know, even simple things like Facebook or whatever. You know, it's more just you can type what you want, type a status, post it, and then people can put the reaction to that. Like, it's very simple. And then, of course, you get more sort of, I guess, complicated. You know, Instagram, where you can share your photos and videos, Twitter, where you can like share tweets and links and stuff. And then, of course, you get your other programs like your SoundCloud and like when you used to have Napster and MySpace and whatnot. Like, it's very simple for young people because they have that mental capacity. And you see older people who want to get in on that as well because it's the thing that everyone's using. And they want to stay in touch with everything that's going on. And, of course, the perfect way to do that is online networking. But they, a lot of them just don't have that mental capacity to keep up with it, you know, like you might have grandparents or something who struggle just to use, you know, such a simple, maybe
definitely.
like an iPhone 3GS, but we
they're
use
much better
that.
off for it, to be honest. They're much better off with not being able to have any
Not having it.
constraints with it. Yeah, because you think about all the connotations that do come with social media, the insecurity, the comparing yourself, the knowing too much at too young of an age, being exposed to too much at too young of an age. Everything's all in your face. There's no sort of censorship anymore. Like with all the shit, like with George Floyd, when I was a young kid, like I know that we are right in the middle of this sort of generation, and we've kind of just had a little bit without it, and then as we've sort of grown up, it's grown with us, if that makes sense. But I remember when I was a kid, I was so innocent in terms of what you're exposed to now, like with the George Floyd situation with the Black Lives Matter and what happened to him. You know, all the kids, like that was all over social media. And as a kid, even on the news, seeing things like that, if I ended up seeing something like that when I was a kid or being exposed to that when I was a kid, I can just imagine being really kind of like traumatized by it. I think. I don't think that like I'd handle that sort of thing very well.
I was going to say one thing, guys. Do you think everyone's become a bit desensitized throughout?
I do.
Social media, because
definitely.
I think in some cases, not in all cases, but in some instances,
yeah. I mean,
in other times, you have to be exposed to that stuff, like the George Floyd.
I think it's
for people our age specifically, it's crucial that we see, no matter how gritty it is. It is disgusting. It is gut wrenching to see it. You know, every time I see stuff like that, I genuinely feel my fist clench and I genuinely grit my teeth and I get so angry to the point where I just don't talk to anyone for the whole day. But it needs to be shown because that is the reality. For someone that's our age, for kids, obviously it's a bit of a grey area. Like you could show it, you might not want to show it. It is dark and it does show them what happens. But with people like our age, it is crucial to see this kind of thing because they are
absolutely our age, definitely. I'm on about kids who are just a little bit younger. I feel like
another thing that's awful though. Because obviously a few years back, I remember when there was all these assassinations that you could see that got leaked on Facebook and stuff. I mean, all these things you see them on Facebook or whatever, these websites and stuff. But until it actually probably happens in front of you, you're not broken, are you? You just like all these games, films, it all looks a bit like, it's not real. And then until it actually probably happens in front of you, your mind doesn't clock that shit. Like
it's like a barrier, isn't it?
This is horrific. I should obviously have emotions when you see this. You're like, fuck, this is horrific. But it's not to the extent where you're traumatized anymore. It's mad what social media has sort of, allowed people to see. I mean, you'll never see half of this stuff on the news, do you? They do bring that back slightly. I don't even know if they're showing the George Floyd thing of him actually getting nailed on. Did they show that on the news?
I don't think they actually showed the footage. No. But I think the crucial thing when you show stuff like this is that you can go about like gallivanting and showing it. I just think you should just put a trigger warning just at the front of it. Like, don't limit yourself to say, there is an African American who is being abused to the point of death. Let's not show it at all. I think you should show it, but there should just be that trigger warning, just to say, warning contains graphic imagery that's disturbing or upsetting. And then, of course, that's your discretion to click it. Like, some people just ignore it, and then they just go, oh, what the fuck? Like, that's really wrong. And it's like, well, you had the discretion. But again, I just think for stuff like that, you should show it, but it should just be given a warning. Like, just as a heads up, there can be some upsetting imagery here. You know, if you don't want to see it, look away or turn it off or switch or something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like pros and cons when it comes to social media in general, because like for that sort of stuff, like the terrible stuff that happens in the world, like social media is a great platform to like help stop it. You know, it's spreading a message. Everyone's saying this is terrible. It needs to stop. It needs to end. And if you keep on rinsing and repeating it and keep on putting it in people's faces, you'd like to think that eventually people will start to get the message. And there is proof that, you know, there has been work done with sharing these terrible things, especially with George Floyd and what happened with that. And I think social media is crucial for that.
Definitely.
In regards to what you say with children, you know, ultimately, I never had Facebook until I was in year 10. My mom never allowed me on it. I know that you guys, I don't know if you guys had it when you were younger, but my mom was always like, there's a lot on Facebook in regards to what you're exposed to. And I think she was very much in belief that a child should have their childhood not exposed to
That's
the
fair
wider
enough.
internet. And I
think that's
always agree
absolutely
with that.
right.
I think I would do that with my kids. I think let a child live
definitely.
their childhoods, because I know a lot of kids that have phones now and they text each other and they have Instagram, and I know that it's already kind of messed with their heads, and it's like,
but let's put this in perspective. So for me personally, I mean, looking at sort of my sister's age and that, it's all about gratification. Like, you know, the photos got to be perfect. Whereas I think we sort of got a bit lucky. Not everyone. I think we've come out of that. You just sort of upload what you want. But I do feel that we still care about, you know, it's a small bit. I do think you prefer like gratification, that, because insecurity is still a massive thing that's come with social media. I feel like before social media, or you were, you know, revealed to all this, I don't think you really cared about what you look like.
No, I think you did anyway. There's always a purpose. Like, as human beings, you always want gratification, and that idea being liked and appreciated. Definitely, it's just social media has heightened that to such an extensive margin now that
with social media,
problems.
You're now exposed to hundreds of thousands of people, whereas of course before you're on social media, it's literally just the people that are around you.
In your
you
circle.
Choose, you know, you can choose to, you don't want to go outside, you can just choose not to, you know, like if in that case, your biggest worry might just be there's the people at school, maybe there's people from me when I walk home or something like that. But with social media,
it's anyone.
You can filter what you see, and you can filter like what people do see from you, but at the same time you are vulnerable to being seen by hundreds of thousands of people. So
what's your thoughts on people's bubbles?
You do get like self-conscious
in terms of like everyone has this like bubble now on social media, and I imagine like they'll feel a bit more. I mean, they don't have to go out now to find out stuff. Whereas about ages ago,
that's what I mean when people are entitled. People are very entitled. If you wanted to live your life indoors, you could do that. You don't. You could speak to your friends online. You could order food to your house. You could work from home.
If you want to go to a foreign country, you could go on a VR set. You know, you can.
Well,
if you really wanted to, I guess.
But that's it. Like you feel
but the prospect is there.
You want to order clothes, you do that online. Everything now you can do online. You want to see that friend, you can FaceTime them just like we are now. It's I do think it is extremely damaging. There's nothing pure anymore, or at least we're drifting away from that purity of what it means to interact with people and be real with people. There's this whole idea that you've got to be something. You've got to be something that you're not. You've got to play up to expectations, and those expectations are great, and they're severe, and they can be extremely dangerous, and they're confused in them. You don't necessarily understand them. You find yourself always worrying what other people are really thinking about you, and there's so many layers to it. And I do think eventually there's no way that this is ever going to come down. It's only going to go up. The only thing that really can ever make a difference is, well, you see it, don't you? You see people and how it affects their mental health. You see people talking about it and how it gets to them. And that's, at the end of it, the only way that you're ever really going to get clarity or a prospect on the actual problem. There's no other way.
Of course. Well, I mean, with social media, it's just kind of like what do you call it? As I say, you are exposed to all those people, and you know, there's always this issue of other people might have it better, or at least they make you perceive in a way they have it better because maybe they live in a bigger house, maybe because they have this thing that you want. And it's you know, it portrays this imagery of like, if you don't have that, it's why I have
and
a problem. It's
they
why
could
I
be
kind of have a
feeling much
problem.
worse than you are.
Yeah,
That, you know, like
it's kind of why I sometimes have an issue with vloggers, because people like Jake Paul and that, like, aside from all the illegal shit they're doing, whatever, but it's more about, you know, every single vlog you get from those kind of people, they're always happy, they're always upbeat, they're always doing something ridiculous.
they have to
Presenting
show
a
for the
life
look,
that
camera.
doesn't exist.
take this Ferrari 360 Spider and we're just gonna fucking do donuts in the park, and then we're gonna fucking put it in the ocean.
And tomorrow we're gonna jump out the window.
Yeah, but it's like
It's
they have the facility to do that, but because they advertise that every single day or whatever, it then portrays as if you're not living your best life unless you're doing things similar to this. And then some people watch that and go, well, I can't afford a Ferrari, I can't drive, I can't do this. Like,
think about the people that you follow on Instagram and stuff. I mean, a lot of the people I follow, you probably, it is a snapshot of their life at the end of the day, which me and Ben touched upon when we made this documentary a few months back. And it does hit you sort of in a certain, it makes you feel shit. You think, well, look at this and that, all these people doing, like, here's me, like, you know, prospects are fucking low at the minute. You feel like, well, what am I doing with my life?
It is that comparison,
and that can destroy you. Whereas if social media weren't a thing, I'm not saying there ain't good things about social media, wouldn't even been on your fucking mind. You wouldn't know about this. Just be your small little bubble in your town or whatever, and that's it. Which I don't know if that's a safe thing or not. I mean, you do have to, like, sort of go outside your bubble because you'll never ever experience anything.
Well, either way, it's dangerous because having social media piques curiosity. You know, rather than having to know what's local, you can go, what's going on in Washington? What's going on in Paris? You can do that because it's on the flick of your phone or just a click on your laptop. Like, you can do that, and granted, you accidentally might expose yourself to something that makes you go, that actually makes me feel really bad about myself. You know, people are doing this, and now I don't feel like I'm of any value or etc. But you know, the facility is there for you to raise your curiosity. But I think it's dangerous to not have that. But it's also a bit of a minefield when you are online and being able to see what you want.
Well, it's a lot of confusion. Touching back on what Ethan just said of, you know, if it wasn't for social media and such, like feeling like you're having to keep up, like just because you don't have prospects and have it together, then you're doing it wrong. I think people can get really confused and overly complicated with all of the variables that come into what is success or what is the right thing to do. And you compare yourselves to a lot of people in general. But I think in terms of the actual happiness of life and what makes you happy,
it's all individual.
You dangerously compare that to other people, and I think you overcomplicate it. What you've genuinely just got to think about to yourself is, where are you at this moment? Are you happy? What can you do to get back to that state? And what is it that's making you feel so unhappy? Are you comparing yourselves to other people too much? Do you feel like they're ahead of you? Do you feel like they're better than you in some other way? Like, what is it about yourself that you are bringing down? And why do you feel the need to do this? There's so many different things that you can take into account for why you feel the way that you do, or insecurities or things like that. But with social media specifically, I think, of course, it has its good things. You know, there's so much that it can expose you to and show you and teach you about the world that's absolutely amazing. But in terms of what you see and what that can do for you in terms of your outlook on life and your impact on yourself, and how it isn't real, you don't see all of the bad things to everyone's life all the time, and you do see this overly complicated and misleading wave of positivity.
It must be a mutual feeling, though. Everyone must go.
It must be an unusual feeling. Yeah, it can be dangerous.
I feel like if there's one thing I'd have to say, it's, you know, measure success by your own measures. Don't, you know, as much as you do see other people doing these things that you want to do and stuff, measure success by your own standards. Don't say you're not successful because you're not jet skiing out here or on a plane to this place or whatever. Like, just put the focus to yourself and just, you know, do what you think, do what you would want to do as the right thing, rather than just
Nathan, I
following the
think you've hit
footsteps.
the
just
nail on the
'cause of
head
it.
there.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with a jet ski.
Yeah.
If I had a jet ski, mate,
Yeah.
that's it.
I was
Go
going to
get
say,
I'd
so
go
basically, the
down to my
moral of the
local lake
story
every
is
day.
I
Yeah.
was
go
going to
get a
say,
jet ski.
I was going to say one last thing before you guys wrap it up or whatever. Well, you can look at famous actors or whatever. They've got all the money and all this, you know, they look happy and everything.
Tyson Fury would be the best example.
Well, that guy's like come from a lot, but I'm more on about Robin Williams, for instance. I've always come back to him.
Very good
'cause
example
it's
as well.
Such an horrific sort of thing that happened, so unexpected. That bloke looked fucking happy, like always smiling. That probably had a fair bit of cash, you know, family and all this. Killed himself. It shows that having all, having all this stuff, you know, this fame and that
doesn't exactly give you happiness.
No, exactly. That's true. Everyone has their own sort of goal of happiness, and until you find that, there's no sort of. It doesn't matter. You don't need the money. It might be a job or a hobby or anything.
Give yourself time. Time's the best thing.
You just got to go on your own path, you know, and find something that you enjoy and follow that. Like that's how I've always tried to live life. Like, what do I enjoy? What do I want to do? If I do this, am I actually going to be happy? And I think if you can follow that, that's always the best way to.
Okay, this has been much better than shitty conspiracy theories.
Wait,
we'll be back with conspiracy theories.
We'll be back at some point, maybe in the next year or something.
After the Halloween special.
I promise you, within a year, at least within the year, we will do part 2.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, that concludes Babblin podcast number 8. I hope you enjoyed this one. I think this one's certainly a subject that we'll have to, because I've just done this off the cuff. I haven't even actually looked at it really. I just kind of like rambled on a bit. I think maybe next time in the future I might make a few more notes. That might be a little bit that might be an idea, especially with the conspiracy theories, Nathan. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.